Every photographer has a different style and a different approach, and they're all masters in their own way. I've been super fortunate in my career to work with the best because you're only as good as the team that you're working with. You could do the most incredible set in the world. It's got to get lit. It's got to get shot. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. It has to do with the team. So
Yes.
all of these incredible team make the picture. All these different photographers have their point of view and their eye. Like Meisel, you're diving into a world. Who is that character that we're shooting?
Yes.
Character is really important.
Yes.
All of these photographers have a very strong sense of art and film. They all are great in that way. Meisel has a special kind of for that, but like Klein has a different kind of approach. I think out of everyone, he has the strongest point of view. It's his world.
Yes.
And you're in this world, whether he's pushing boundaries, is it twisted? It's a film approach. Klein pushes the lighting in a way that no other photographer does. Steven can do anything. Herb had a special talent that he made the talent feel like $1 million. His photos were effortless, but they were always beautiful. Peter was like working with your father or grandma. I love his pictures because they feel timeless. They're crisp, they're beautiful. Craig is incredible. He's modern and fresh and super collaborative. And with his light, his talent looks incredible.
This is Going Rogue, and I'm Jill Demling. Today's guest is Stefan Beckman. For over 25 years, Stefan has been fashion's master set designer, the man behind Marc Jacobs' legendary runway spectacles and era-defining editorial shoots for Vogue, W, and every major fashion magazine. He calls fashion a giant cultural blender, drawing from art, architecture, and film to create environments that don't just frame clothes, they shape how we see them. So step into your dream set and listen as Stefan Beckman goes rogue. To see the images we discussed today, head to our Instagram at goingrogue.podcast or visit goingroguepodcast.com. And if you're enjoying these conversations, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. It's how these stories keep getting told. Hi, Stefan.
Hi, Jill.
I'm so happy to see you. I feel like since I've left British Vogue, like we're not on shoots anymore.
I know. But we have a lot of crazy stories.
Exactly. So I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. For over 25 years, you've been creating some of the most spectacular and memorable fashion moments, from Marc Jacobs' legendary runway shows that are widely regarded as the hot ticket of Fashion Week to campaigns for luxury powerhouses like Chanel, Prada, and Louis Vuitton. You've been called fashion's master set designer, but I think you're much more than that. You're someone who understands that fashion is, as you put it, a giant cultural blender, taking inspiration from art, architecture, film, even American Horror Story, and transforming it into unforgettable experiences. Your collaboration with Marc Jacobs alone spans more than 20 seasons and has featured everything from Diana Vreeland's Red Living Room to a 38-foot-tall hot pink clapboard house. But beyond the spectacle, you've shown that set design can elevate fashion shows into works of performance art. Your runway work is epic and legendary, but today I want to focus on your editorial career, your magazine work, because that's really the thread that runs through all of my interviews and where we've collaborated together over the years. Before we dive into your incredible journey, I want to start with where it all began, because your path to becoming fashion's most sought-after set designer started in a very different place. I think it's always important for Gen Z listeners to learn how someone got to where they are, especially for those pursuing a career in the fashion industry. Through the conversations I've had on this podcast, I've realized that many of my guests knew at a very young age what they wanted to be, almost as if the profession had called them. Through these conversations, I've also realized how important an artist's parents are in either encouraging or discouraging their creativity as a child and their desire to pursue a career in the arts. So you were born in Las Vegas, but raised in California and Texas. You studied theater and film at the University of Texas at Austin, which you've described as a great education that opened me up visually, but not necessarily where I ended up. So tell us a bit about your childhood, how it influenced who you are today professionally. What was your family like growing up? Were they creative people? And were you artistic as a child?
Yeah. My parents were very creative. My father was a landscape architect. And then he designed parks around the country and in Hawaii. And kind of stopped doing that and opened a very influential gift store in San Francisco called the Enchanted Crystal, where he would create all these fantastical environments with like fairies
Oh
and
my God.
dragons and back in the 70s, like the Grateful Dead would shop there and all these celebrities. And weirdly, he designed a party for Karl Lagerfeld when they launched a fragrance in San Francisco. So there's all these weird parallels like later in my life.
But
And
with Karl Lagerfeld, did you know who he was?
I mean, my father kind of knew who he was, but then years later, I ended up, working on campaigns with Karl,
Oh my God.
working on Chanel campaigns with him, and then I actually designed a house for him in Vermont
Oh my
years
God.
later. So there's these weird parallels between my
Yeah.
dad and myself. Also, my father was like one of the first people to bring Swarovski crystals into the States, hanging crystals that people would kind of have in their windows and stuff. And then years later, I did Swarovski exhibitions and Swarovski shoots. So it's kind of a precursor to some of my stuff.
Wow.
My mom was very creative. She wrote poetry and she was very, very fashionable and beautiful. So I grew up in a house that fashion was always around.
Yeah.
Her uncle had a store in Alabama. My parents grew up in Louisiana, but her uncle had a store. So she always had like the latest New York fashions. So fashion was always there around in my life.
Naturally. Yeah.
Naturally. And as a child, I was artistic. I loved theater. I loved I was always in plays growing up and, performing and that kind of stuff. So the theater route just was kind of a no-brainer for me. So that's kind of where I went into it for college.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So you studied theater and film. What did you think you were going to do when entering college? Were you thinking
I thought I wanted to be an actor. I thought I wanted to be an actor. I'd done theater in high school. I was in plays with Renee Zellweger in high school.
Oh my God.
We went to high school together.
Oh
So
my God.
I was a year ahead. But anyway, so I went to college thinking, oh, I'm going to become an actor. And then very soon you realize maybe this isn't exactly what I want to do.
Well, that's like me when I thought I was going to be an artist. And I was like, yeah. But when your parents were totally supportive
My
of
parents were
this?
supportive of whatever I wanted to do. They were never,
Wow.
my parents were dreamers for sure. My dad, especially, maybe not the most practical. It wasn't about like, oh, you need to do this because this is a good living and this is how you make money.
That's incredible.
They weren't like that at all. Because I also think their parents were able to give them, a life that they didn't have to worry. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
so they didn't think about that you had to have a certain job. You just kind of pursued your dreams and, you hope for the best, which is
Right.
kind
And
of the way I took things.
yeah, after graduating from the University of Texas, you moved to Los Angeles and started your design career in the art departments of movies and television series.
I
You
did.
said, I realized I preferred working behind the scenes, and that foundation in storytelling, conceiving sets and props while considering lighting and camera angles, became crucial later in fashion. Then you made the leap to New York in the early 1990s. You've described those humble beginnings with such joy. I was doing TV guide covers with Whitney Houston and Michael J. Fox. I was so happy to do those TV guide covers. You have to start somewhere. You've also said you felt like you were on top of the world doing those mini sets. You wrote me yesterday that in addition to working with TV Guide, I started working in music on album covers and publicity images for record labels. We would do the cover and also various images that the label could use and give to the press. I worked on the infamous Notorious B.I.G. cover, Life After Death, Cher's Believe. You worked with J-Lo and the Rolling Stones, to name a few, end quote. I cannot wait to ask you questions about working with all those artists, but let's first talk about that move to LA. Your story has elements of mine. I took that leap to LA after college, more of a find myself journey. I wanted to go to New York City, but I needed to figure out who I was. But it's scary to like move to California, and then I also moved to New York, like you did. I was probably only in LA for about 18 months, but I didn't know anyone in either city, and I think I learned definitely more about myself from just those moves. So, can you talk about the move to LA and those early LA years? How you landed that first job? Did you start as an assistant, or just the whole experience, the learnings, and then we'll get you to New York?
Yeah, LA seemed like a natural place. Like I had a lot of friends in college, and LA at that point in the late 80s, after the Olympics especially, it was kind of like the place to be.
Well, and you had California already.
And I had California already. I'd lived in San Francisco as a child, and my dad still lived there. So, I mean, New York was always where it was at, but LA definitely was having a moment in the late 80s. So a bunch of our friends, we decided we would move there. I had an internship like during college. I lived out there a summer before I moved out there. I worked for Roger Corman, who was like the B. It's where Scorsese and all these filmmakers got their start. He was the B Hollywood movie king. So I worked at his offices working on like shoots, like for like promotional, like working on the movie posters. So that was like my first thing in like kind of a out of college. I mean, in college and kind of like in the business.
So let me ask you, so you've been doing acting, and then you decide, I don't think I'm going to pursue that as a profession, but there's so many other thing. Like, why did it go to sets? Did you first?
When you're in college, I started taking film classes. I was still doing theater. And then I realized I could get a double major with film. So I really loved my film classes. And what was great about them is that you would do little short films or you would do little segments.
Right.
And what you would do is you'd have to do everything. So like as you do in college. So you would have to design a set. You would have to shoot that set. And then you would have to edit that set, like edit the content for your film. So all these things were super interesting. You were directing. So you were actually creating a narrative with all these things. So I moved to LA. I mean, I loved doing the sets. That was one of my favorite things, doing the sets on all these little films in college. And I have to say that I think I excelled. I was very ambitious in the sets that I was
sure.
If we were doing, it could be something we were doing, like we were doing a talk show or we were doing a short film. They were always different genres that we had to work on, but I would always kind of think about like what the graphics would look like for that talk show. So I made graphics, or what the set we had to do a public service announcement. And I remember I did this whole film noir take of like shooting through a window. So I was always thinking about the visuals of what that would look like, because I really So then I was moving, not thinking, oh, I'm going to become a production designer. Like so I wasn't sure. So then I really loved the editing aspect, because I thought the idea of putting all those things together, you really had that control of how that story was going to be. Like a film editor controls so much of that. So I moved to LA thinking that I would become a film editor, which in hindsight, I don't even know how that would have worked out. It's like, it seems like a very lonely existence.
Right.
Like doing that. So
but finding out what you want to do is a lot about checking off or crossing off what you don't want to do. So you kind of have to go through that process of elimination to figure out exactly what it is. You have a sense of what you like, and then it's honing in, because that's kind of what.
And I think that's the important thing, and we'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
Advice for young people is like, take every opportunity. It doesn't matter if it seems like it's the wrong opportunity. You don't know what you're going to learn from that. You might learn that you don't want to go back there, and that's okay. But that's the best advice that I give everyone.
But I have to tell you one thing that you just reminded me of when you were talking about college, is in college, I went in as a math major and switched to studio art. And my senior thesis, now that I'm talking to like a master set builder, I decided to build a room and a performance art, I don't even know what, an installation of 6 foot by 6 foot walls that I stuccoed, and then I got sod for the ground.
Amazing.
And I took a door from my parents' house and windows, so people would go inside, but they'd be looking through the windows with video cameras of my mom and my dad. But I was like, it looked like shit. Like, you talk about like the elaborate sets.
But you were into doing something visual.
I couldn't put it. I had it in my head, but I didn't have the skills or the, how to translate that into a real thing. Like,
Right.
so I can see how someone like you in college at the same time knew how to do that, because that's a huge part of it. How do you make that physical thing come alive from an idea?
Well, that's most of the thing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
you could have all the ideas in the world. It
Right.
doesn't matter, but like you have to
Right.
execute, you have to produce, you have to be able to like figure it out,
Right. Right.
like how it actually
I
works.
mean, let alone I couldn't even hold one of the 2x4s. But anyway, okay, so you had been interning and then you land this gig.
So that was kind of during college. I had that kind of opening my eyes up to the world of film. I moved to LA. I thought I'd be a film editor, but my first job, I can't just move out there and then become a film editor. So I started working similar to where you started. I worked for a Hollywood agent, which is completely like different. So
Right.
it was a stable job. It was a great, I needed a job and I wanted a job where I, didn't have to worry. So I had a job with a television literary agent and we handled writers and directors and producers and stuff.
Yeah.
We would package
Yep.
projects for TV and film.
Yep.
It's great. I loved it. It was an amazing opportunity to learn about the backbone and the background of Hollywood
And the players.
And the
all
players.
the players. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So then from there, I started working for a producer. I worked for an agent for like a year, and I probably could have had a career as an agent. I didn't want that. I had a really good mentor, but through that, I got a job. I met a producer, Michael Gruskoff. He was an old school Hollywood producer. He had done like Quest for Fire and Young Frankenstein back in the 70s.
Yeah.
He was doing Prelude to a Kiss when I worked with him.
Oh
And
my God.
so I was his assistant, like helping, like finding new projects and stuff like that. Again, an interesting job, not the most creative. So
But
I
that
was,
might have helped given you some in the back of your head production type of, or even just how
For
you
sure.
put
For sure.
together,
Sure.
that line sheet in a way. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So after that, I realized maybe I want to be doing something more creative. So I realized the art department is probably where I should go, like more like TV, film, art department. 'Cause
Yeah.
I did love that in college. It seemed like I was really into like the idea of creating what something looks like. So I started working on TV movies and pilots for network.
But how? Like as an assistant or?
As an assistant, I started working. I got a job at a production company, and they were producing a TV movie, and I like started answering phones,
Yeah.
and then surely enough, and then you start working for the art coordinator,
Yeah.
and then you work your way up. Like
But
you know, what I mean?
people have to understand, because you and I did very similar things. I mean, my first internship in LA before CAA was with Neil Moritz and at a production company called Original Film.
Yeah.
Like we did music videos, TV commercials. So you're doing cold calls. You are meeting people, and like it's almost an out of body experience. Like you don't really know, and it's smoke and mirrors a bit, but you're just going for it. Like that's how you find yourself in each stage that leads to the next stage.
That's how you learn. That's
Yeah.
how you learn, and you're saying, you're learning the players, you're learning how things work or how
Yeah.
the industry works. So I started working in this like production company, and then I slowly worked my way up. And then I swing gang, which is like you're literally like on the truck picking up furniture, the different prop houses. You're picking up the furniture, you're dropping them off on set, and then started working on like dressing the set. Like you go from there, you start dressing the set. Before the production starts to come and lights and shoots, you're there before and after. So those are my first. But again, you're helping creating that look of wherever you are. So those are my first things. Like I worked on like the Amy Fisher story with Alyssa Milano, and I worked on like, some other TV movies and pilots for Foxx. And so,
And were the people in the lead positions, were they teaching you things? Were they, I mean, because
They were,
it can
for sure.
touch or go. It can be,
for sure.
Yeah.
Like, cause you would go to a set and you would have all this stuff and you had to put it together.
Yeah.
Like you have a truck full of furniture and props. And you go into a barn and you have to make this look like, a blacksmith or make it look like an old timey this or so that would be, and that's where it started to get creative and really realize that what you're doing now is you're creating the look of whatever it needs to be. So those are the first things in LA, and things, and I was starting to get work and working for different production designers, and you'd work on a project and you'd go to another one, and
Right.
so it's like you were freelance, but you would kind of, it's word of mouth and meeting
Yeah.
people and all that stuff. And then, this was probably my third or fourth year in LA after college, and I loved it out there. But then that's when I just decided to move to New York.
But oh my God. So what made that decision? I mean, because you're
Well,
getting a lot of work. Were you thinking at all magazines at that point? Or
no, not at all, not at all,
so
nothing, nothing
but
at
if
all.
you're still thinking film sets, like
I
what?
am. So with my best friend in LA, we came to New York, and then we were like in our early 20s and drunkenly like, let's move to New York. I mean, New York was always a place that I loved. Like I
Right.
always went there. My father went there for business on buying trips. I would come with him a lot. So New York was always a place that because of my love of theater, because of going there
Yeah.
as a child so many times, it was always a place that was like the center of the world.
But
So
were there any
exactly.
leads? And
There were
had
no
you
leads, none.
none?
In LA at that point, all my work was non-union. So then I moved to New York, and I found out all of the film work was union at that point.
And
Like,
what does that mean as
so
far
like,
as your work?
so, well, I couldn't get any, I couldn't just like start to work in
Oh.
an art department because I wasn't in the union.
Oh. And
But in
did
LA at that
yeah.
point, there was so much TV work.
Right.
Now it's all union. Like everything's union.
Right.
But back in the day, there was a lot of work that you could do non-union, and the unions were much stronger in New York. So I moved to New York without a job and not like nothing. So
Right.
I literally started from scratch completely. But the good thing is I knew what I wanted. I knew what I didn't want to do. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? So
And what was that? Like what
oh,
had you
I knew I wanted to do
figured?
something creative. I didn't know exactly what that meant. My very first job, you land in New York,
Right.
you have a bit of money, but like very little money, and
And
it's
did
very
you find a place before you moved? Because that's another thing. Like, where are you going to
no,
live?
no, no, no. We literally moved here, and we're staying on a friend's couch. I mean, it's literally like the story that you see in the movies.
Yeah.
Staying on a friend's couch, and then, but back then it was the very early '90s. You could find less expensive places, I think, than you can. They were still expensive, but it wasn't like, we were able to find a place in Chelsea that was like a one bedroom that I split and was like,
Yeah. I know. We all do that, right? The
so
railroad flat with 4 people. I was on
exactly.
an
I
air
built like my
mattress.
bedroom was in the living room.
Yes,
I
exactly.
found like
The
crates
futon.
outside to,
There's like whole
make a
futon
wall.
stores because there's so many people. I know
Exactly.
my first, when I moved here, it was 6 and C in
Oh
1998,
wow.
which was not safe. I was
I
like,
lived on
what?
second between A and B.
Oh my
That was like, but C was like no man's land.
Yeah, I know.
So, I mean, okay, so I moved here. My very first day of work through a college friend. He worked at a production company. I returned props for a Cool Whip commercial.
Someone has to do
So
it.
someone has to
Someone
do it.
has
So I went to Bloomingdale's, returning all these props, just convincing them to like take
take them. Yeah.
them back.
Yeah.
So that was my very first day of work. I got a job waiting tables in the meantime at the opera, at the Met Opera, as a waiter, just to like kind of get my bearings, so I would
Well,
have
that's a cool place for someone that's
It was great. It was
doing
great.
what
It was
you're
very
doing to be there.
It was
you
very
know?
glamorous. It was like, I mean, the opera's the Lincoln Center. It's incredible. So I was a waiter there, but then on the side, I would try to meet people, randomly. I met a couple stylists. This is how it all started. So I met people. I knew fashion existed. I didn't come to New York to work in the fashion industry at all. I didn't really know where I would be. I loved the film work. I loved being creative in the art department. I did love that. I'd like to go in that direction, but I wasn't in the union, so I didn't really know quite how that was going to work. But I met a few stylists. There was a stylist that I started assisting him on some fashion shoots. There was a stylist that lived in my building, my very first apartment. Wayne Lucas, he did all the Janet Jackson,
Oh my God.
like tons of stuff for Janet Jackson, and
Right
like,
place, right time.
Yeah.
and being open.
And
That's
Tina
the
Turner,
key.
and he needed extra help on set, and I was like became his like third assistant, and then literally everyone quit, and then I became his first assistant. It was
Oh
just like
my
it
God.
was like kind of chaotic, but I was working on stuff. I was working on stuff with Patrick DeMarchelier as an assistant,
Oh
like
my.
working on Revlon shoots. But I didn't want to be a fashion stylist.
Right.
I didn't. But it was like a an opening to a world that I
Yeah,
was
and you were
starting to,
seeing what was going on
I
around
was
you. And
starting to understand.
yeah.
Like my mother, she loved fashion, and were always fashion magazines around the house. But I didn't realize. I mean, I guess I realized you could be a fashion designer and you realize you could work on a shoot, but I didn't realize there was a world beyond that, if that makes sense.
No, of course. Okay, let me set up. Well, actually, I want to talk about TV Guide
Okay.
and yeah,
Yeah.
and the music stuff. So, what step,
All right.
where did that come in? Because that's
Yep.
big, you know.
Yep. So I moved to New York. I'm working on shoots as like an assistant, like
Yeah.
for fashion stylists, like schlepping around garment bags and picking up stuff and going to shoots and packing it up. What you do as an assistant.
Which is a lot.
And you
Like
meet,
I
which is great, but
yeah.
you meet a lot of people. You meet a lot of people along the way.
Yeah.
And those people could introduce you to other people. So at the same time, one of my friends worked, but before I go into that, let me talk about TV
Yeah.
Guide.
Yeah.
So from then I got asked to do some small shoots. So you're an assistant, and then maybe someone realizes, oh, it's a young photographer. Maybe we could do a shoot together. I mean, that's how you forge relationships. You meet a young photo assistant on a shoot, you become friends, and like, oh, let's do a shoot together. And that
Or all the set people. Did you meet any would you
I
go up
I
to
wasn't doing the set stuff yet,
but
but then
did you go up to
slowly.
any of them on the sets with the stylist when you're assisting the stylist?
Yeah, a little bit. Because yeah, then you like try to like
Yeah.
assist them, and
Yeah.
you just want to meet as many people, and like, oh, if you ever need extra help.
Exactly.
So eventually, after assisting and after working on different shoots, and they could be shoots in fashion, they could be shoots on set. Maybe I worked with a handful of like four people, not full time. It wasn't like I had one full time thing. I was also waiting tables here and there. I was kind of doing whatever I could
Right.
and meeting as many people.
Right.
And then around that time, I got asked to do with a young photographer, got asked to do, there were a lot of magazines during that time. So obviously there was the Vogue, the Harper's Bazaar, the Vanity Fair, but underneath all that, there were so many other magazines from Mirabella to like workout magazines, lifestyle magazines, all different fashion magazines, like interiors. So there was a lot of opportunity to do little tiny
And
shoots.
catalogs.
And
Hello. That was the day.
catalogs was a huge thing. So there was opportunities to do small projects. So from that, I started working with a photographer, and I got my first jobs were were working on the sets for TV Guide covers. Those were my first kind of big thing. They were my jobs. I
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
assisting. There were like big celebrities. There was Whitney Houston, Michael J. Fox, and
And TV Guide was huge,
it was huge. I
everybody.
mean,
If
remember the format was like this big.
yes,
It was
but
it was small, but you were able to do these like little tiny mini sets for, and they
big
would have
talent.
for big talent because those people were on TV.
Yes.
So I did a bunch of those, and those I honestly thought I was like on top of the world.
Yeah, we didn't have streamers. Like everyone that's younger listening, like doesn't kind of understand. Like TV Guide was where you promoted
And I think the
anything on
circulation, I
television.
mean, the
It was
circulation, I don't know,
huge.
it
It
was
was
like
huge.
millions
Yes.
around the country. That's how you got, I remember as a kid, you got TV Guide and you looked to see what.
Yes, what the new shows were.
Yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So to work on those was kind of, it was great because it was like something you grew up with and something you knew and something weirdly your parents knew.
And
You
they'd
could
see
say,
your work. It
yes,
would
you could
come into their
say,
home.
you could say to them, I'm going to do a cover for Harper's Bazaar or Vogue. And they would be excited, but you could
Yeah.
also say you're doing a cover for TV Guide, and they
Because
might
all their friends,
because
yeah.
everyone knew what that was.
Everyone
It
got
was at the
TV
grocery
Guide.
store. It was
Yes.
everywhere. So
Yes.
those were my first jobs, and then on my own. So then from there was a lot of you meet different photographers and young
Yeah.
photographers. There was a lot of other work in the music business. So back then, the music industry was still really
Huge.
like
Yeah.
solid and
Yeah.
huge. That was the end of that era. So there were a lot of album covers and, publicity photos and things that all of these artists needed. So I started working in tandem. I worked on these TV Guide covers. Then I also started working on music. So music would be like, you would have a cover, you'd work with the label and a young photographer, and you'd come up with the idea of like, oh, we're going to shoot Biggie and we're going to take him to this cemetery and we want to get a hearse and we want to shoot him and we want
Oh
to
my
shoot him in
God.
this thing. So I did Notorious B.I.G. Life After Death, and he passed away like right after it was happening.
Okay, so let
So,
me ask you, so would the label be hiring you or the photographer be hiring you?
I think technically you had that relationship in anything, and goes into fashion as well.
Yeah.
The label would hire you, but the relationship was with the photographer. Like really, because you became part of that team.
Of course.
So I
Yeah.
started working with this photographer, Michael Levine, who was very big in the music industry. He shot Nirvana, shot all these different people. And back in the 90s, like huge, like he traveled around with a lot of people. And so I started working with him on a lot of different shoots. And this is where I did Notorious B.I.G. I shot that with him. And
What
then
was he like? What was
he's
that
amazing,
like?
like just easy and creative. And I also think being in the music
No,
business.
but B.I.G.
Oh, B.I.G. Oh,
Yeah.
he was great, like really like nice and
Oh
like,
my God.
had an entourage, but very kind and, not what like that persona of where you think someone might be.
Yeah. Oh
But
my God.
he was great. So it's funny, I worked on that and then I kind of forgot about it for the longest time. And then I told
I mean,
like
it's massive.
it's massive, and all my old assistants like, what do you mean?
Yeah,
Like
I
that was
know.
that was like so pivotal.
And
So
now
that
he's
was
back in. I mean, I just started watching the Puffy thing, and there you go. He's like
exactly. So
life
back,
after death.
so Puffy, I think Puffy produced that.
Yes, I'm
Produced that. So
sure.
he worked on. There were so many different bands that Puffy had
Oh
his.
my God.
Diddy had his like hands in. So we did
Yeah.
all these kind of like again, we did all these album covers based on those things, and it was like there was a steady stream of work doing that.
Yeah.
So it was really. I ended up doing with Michael Levine. I ended up doing Cher, Believe.
Oh my God. My
By then
favorite
obviously.
song.
Yeah, by then, obviously, it's Cher. She's
Yeah.
a superstar legend. She had already had such an incredible career. What was interesting about these shoots for the music thing is that you had a talent you had the artist for a day, if that. And it's similar to a fashion shoot that you might do with Annie or with Steven, is that you would set up a bunch of mini sets. Literally. You would have, okay, we're going to shoot Cher in this chapel, and I'm going to make this like chapel, and I'm going to put a beautiful window with light shining down and like rose petals on the floor and very like Cher. So you're going to do that. And then for the cover, that's going to be one picture. And then for the cover, we're going to do this crazy wallpaper and we're going to put her in front of this. And then for this, we need some publicity photos of Cher just that they're going to give to the press. So like
Right.
we put Cher on a sofa or put Cher against a background. So you would have all these mini things and you didn't have a lot of time. They
Right.
did a lot of hair and makeup and a lot of costume changes, wardrobe changes. So, and you would just kind of go from set to set and just shoot as much as you really, for those album things, so those music things, you would shoot as much as you could.
Yeah, because
As the
also,
label needed content.
yes, and the single has a cover, and that
Yeah.
is different from the album.
Exactly. And that was all
Everything
the
has
stuff you
to
were
be
doing.
different. Everything, it's not a story that relates to each other. It's
Yeah,
not. It's
sure.
all very
And then
different.
inside the CD, I mean, we call them an album cover, but
Yeah.
and they were still doing albums, but it was really a CD cover.
Yeah.
At that point. But inside the thing, you would have like the words, you would have more pictures.
Exactly.
And then maybe they would have a shot they would release to Rolling Stone or they
Right.
would to the New York
The
Times.
pickup art for everyone that's going to cover that wants an exclusive picture.
Exactly. So you would do all those things. And I did that.
Oh my God.
I did that for J-Lo, Rolling Stones. I did that for a bunch of artists, LL Cool J. And they were all with different photographers and different scenarios. But it was a great way. And that was kind of the end of an era of doing that. It's not to say they don't do that at all anymore.
And I bet looking back, and I don't know if you realize this yourself, but I would think what you got most out of that was your ability, that you have an incredible ability to interact with people of all different types of people, because you're the personalities to be able to, because that's a big thing. On set, it's stressful. I think the most successful people are the ones who are able to keep composed and to handle different personalities, not reacting, and just, you have to kind of be a chameleon.
You have to be flexible.
Flexible.
I mean, you have to be flexible in every scenario, and then even if you have to bite your tongue, and even
exactly.
if you have to be nice.
Right.
I mean, at least I try to be as nice as I can, and I think I have that.
You do. You're always calm. Always calm.
I'm at least on the outside.
Yeah, and I can see, we'll talk about it later, that Beyonce shoot where you had every right to have an attitude and say something and be frustrated. I was kind of waiting for the eruption, and it didn't happen. But now let's get to your editorial career, and I'll do the setup. So everyone should remember, this is pre-Instagram. So magazines were like your resume. This is what all the hair and makeup people I've had on, from Stefan to Orlando, about how important your book was and magazines were, because that's where your credit was. That's where your name was. The magazines were your resume, where you could show your work and build a book, or just have it seen by brands in hopes of getting commercial jobs. So let's set the scene. You're in New York, mid to late 90s. You're doing TV guide covers with Whitney Houston, Michael J. Foxx, creating album covers and publicity images for major labels. Then in 1997 comes a pivotal connection with Fabian Baron. Yeah. And as you've said, it all just kind of snowballed. What followed was introductions to Peter Lindbergh, then to Herb Ritts. Then in 1998, you did a fashion story for the New York Times, Fashion of the Times. Steven Meisel saw it and called you in for a meeting. This is 1999, the absolute height of Meisel's career. He's shooting every single Vogue cover. He just did Madonna's sex book. Your first Vogue shoot was in August 1999 with Gisele and the fabulous Paul Cavaco. Then your first covers were September 99 and September 99 with Gwyneth Paltrow, and October 99 with Winona Ryder, both with Meisel. And these weren't simple covers. Gwyneth was playing characters from different decades, so you had to create different sets for each shot. You were thrown right in the deep end. So tell us about how the Fabian Baron connection came about, then take us through meeting and working with Peter and Herb, and what those early fashion editorial experiences were like, including your first ever magazine shoot prior to Vogue, because then we'll talk about that.
Yep. So I had a friend that worked at Harper's Bazaar. She worked for Sarah Jane Hoare, the fashion editor, and she introduced me to Wayne, who was going out with Wayne Mazer at the time. Oh. And so this is how it all happened. So it's one of my best friends worked for Sarah Jane. Wow. She and I had started, like I was doing the TV guide and I was doing the music stuff, and I was doing other magazines, and I was starting to do fashion stuff. So it wasn't I wasn't doing any fashion. I wasn't doing. I started to do stuff here and there. You get word of mouth. You work on something that you get recommended along. I met Michelle Comte. I did shoots for Gianfranco Ferré campaign. So it was starting to happen in drips and drops.
And at that point, think about all the music covers Herb was doing. There was a real crossover at that time.
For sure. You start working with people, you get recommended, and there weren't a lot of people that doing what I'm doing, that doing set design. I mean, just as a history. So
tell us. Well,
so the history. So back in the day, way back in the day, before my time, if a photographer wanted to shoot something, and they're like, "Oh, I want to shoot this celebrity, or I want to shoot this model. So, I want a chair, I want a sofa." So here's what would happen: he or she would like get their maybe girlfriend or maybe it was someone at a magazine. "Oh, someone at Vogue, I need you to get me a sofa." So it also there was no one doing what we were doing.
That's
Marla
crazy.
Weinhoff,
right.
That she was one of the first.
Right.
She worked with someone before with Avedon, but she was and I was literally right after that. So there weren't a lot of people. So you get recommended, like a photographer needs I want to do a set, or I want to get a bunch of furniture, or I need a mansion that we're shooting a
location.
A location. I need to dress this location. Who should I call? So there were very few people, and I was very in the right place at the right time.
Right.
So I think I know I benefited from that. So I met Wayne. I worked on a bunch of shoots with him. I worked on a shoot with Polly Mellon for Allure. I
Wow.
worked on a fashion editorial, and I worked on a bunch of stuff with him. And then he was doing the Hugo Boss campaign, and then he introduced me to Fabian, and because Fabian was doing the Hugo Boss campaign at that point. So that was my
Oh.
start of meeting Fabian in 1997, and we've worked together ever since. And then you kind of get snowballed. The same time period, I was working with Santa Dorazio. I was starting to do Victoria's Secret and those shoots.
I have a question. I have a question because when you met Fabian, because this kind of happened to me where even when I interviewed, at Condé Nast, I didn't know who Anna was. I mean, it's very different from LA. The players are different.
Yeah.
There's more formality here as far as Mr. De La Renta versus Steven Spielberg. But like, did you know, or was it because I almost feel like because I didn't know really, I was exactly the person she wanted because there wasn't this like nervousness or intimidation or like, did you know who Fabian, like really know who he was when you were meeting him? Like the
Well,
level of him.
I mean, at that point, he had done the sex book. He was definitely influential. Maybe you didn't really put two and two together. In the end, you get a call to meet somebody. You have a relationship. You get along, hopefully.
Right.
And then you start to work with them. And then you realize maybe like, oh, wow, that person's
Yeah.
prolific.
Yeah.
You kind of just don't have an idea because in the end of the day, even in Fabian's case, like you're working, you're like doing, you're like, that's why
Right.
you're successful. You could be creative, but you're actually just day to day, you're doing the work. So it's
Right.
like, you kind of don't really think about it in a way.
Right. And it's a small industry,
It's very small.
so unless you're inside, it is a
And fashion
fascinating
was
industry.
very, very small back then. Like I
Right.
remember, this is pre Pier 59. So Pier 59 had not opened yet. And I remember you pretty much shot at Industria was the studio that you shot at. And then there was like Sun Studios, Studio One. There's Daylight Studio. There's a couple other random studios.
Yeah.
Like Meisel was always at Industria. And I remember being in the studios next to him. And I remember this to this day that I remember there was this Italian Vogue shoot that he did with Linda that was all this 50s furniture. And I remember going by and seeing all the furniture. And you knew Steven at that point in like 1997,
Oh,
98
massive.
was massive. But the industry is very small, but you were working in the studio next to him and you're like,
Yeah.
he was the god. Like,
Yes.
so meeting Fabian was super pivotal. And then I also, during that time, I met Herb Ritts because
Who I love.
it was amazing. Who I had met Lorenz Scott, also amazing. I met her on a shoot with Santa Dorazio. We started working together. She's like, I know Herb would love you. So we started working on shoots together, and that's how I met Herb.
And then with Peter, when was the Peter
The
Lindbergh?
Peter introduction was through Fabian.
Okay, and was he doing Harper's at the time, right?
Doing Harper's at the time. He was doing a lot of like advertising. So like my first job with Peter was another Hugo Boss campaign. So also with Fabian.
I mean, you got
Like-
the two nicest
I did.
photographers. I always talk about when I got promoted, my first covers were Herb. Peter hadn't come over until later, but Herb and Peter are like dreams.
Also,
to work with.
Herb had a special talent that he made the talent feel like they were like $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
And it was his photos were effortless.
Oh,
They
totally.
were overproduced. They were simple, but they were always
It was
beautiful.
a feeling.
The talent felt amazing. They felt sexy, but it wasn't
Yes.
sexualized at all.
Right,
But they
right.
felt like it was like I don't know, the California cool, like the
Oh, for
best you could
sh-
like
Oh,
the
yeah.
best. And there hasn't been anyone
No.
since.
I mean, Mario had a lot
Mario's
of his.
different. Mario has that.
has the ability to make the woman feel beautiful, but the pictures are totally different. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was golden hour.
To me,
it
Mario's
was
a little bit more into the world and more into like
travel and everywhere. It's not. Yeah.
travel and more. It's not to say Herb wasn't into that. Herb's pictures are simpler, I
But
guess.
Herb, California, you can't separate those two. The golden hour on the beach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his light. He owns it. You know what I mean? It's like,
amazing.
but what were like working with them early on or early on in your high fashion magazine career? Because at this point you've done a lot, you're stable and you know what you're doing and you're the go-to. So let's do now the Meisel story.
So the Meisel. So
that's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, at that point, Meisel, like you said, he was the Godfather. There was no one. He was the Holy Grail. He was every Vogue, every Italian Vogue,
every
campaign that was interesting. It's not to put other photographers down, but he was literally on top of the world.
Yeah, and when I started booking the covers at Vogue, we deliberately would never repeat a photographer on a cover, 2 covers in a row. Yeah. So the fact that he did every cover except Hillary Clinton, he owned the block. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I did a story for Fashion of the Times, for the New York Times. And it was like, it was a very ambitious story. It was a story, Aaron O'Connor was in it.
Who was the photographer?
Michelangelo De Battista was the photographer.
Wow, okay.
And we wanted to create a world that was like outer space, another world. We're in a spaceship. So we were trying to think of how we could do it. So I had my assistant drive down to South Carolina, and we got all these huge crates, these packing crates, and we made these sets out of these packing crates. And it was very like conceptual, like it didn't look like a packing crate. So we did these pictures, which were beautiful. For the New York Times, it was a big budget for them, but we pushed it as far as we could. Yeah. The pictures were incredible. It ran in the New York Times. And back then, the New York Times, Fashion of the Times, I mean, there was Vogue, obviously the pinnacle, but New York Times, the reach of the New York Times in the fashion stories were really, really influential. Everyone might not look at Vogue, but everyone looked at the New York Times.
And you're getting it on your front step. Everyone's reading.
Everyone. So Meisel saw that story and called me in for a meeting. That was like the dream of all. It's like the dream came true.
So what were you feel like? How did that?
I met it.
I've never talked to the man. so after
I remember. I sat at his. Jimmy Moffat was there. Mm-hmm. Ashley Brokaw, who's an incredible casting director, who was his.
Yeah, I remember that
point. We sat down, the 3 of us, and he looked at my portfolio, because you brought a portfolio.
Yeah.
Went to his office on Wooster Street, and we sat and went over that. And he's like, okay, I have a few jobs I'd love for you to do. So that started like for a year straight. I did every job with him.
Well, he's so loyal that way. He gets someone, you get into the rhythm, and you're a key member. Like his availability is not just when he's free, it's when his team is free.
Exactly. But I didn't know how that team worked. I didn't know how it worked. I had been working with some amazing, incredible people, but obviously it's a different way of working. Steven brings so much. He asks you to bring so much. I mean, every photographer wants you to bring a lot to the table. It's not that they don't, but Steven really expects you to dive into the world that he's creating.
Right. That's what everyone says. Everyone I've had on who, like from Guerin to Orlando, they talk about how giving he is too, that they learned the most about what they did through his shoots, because he pushes you, but he also gives you freedom. He doesn't micromanage you. He lets you, let's see, show me.
I don't know if this is a good analogy, but imagine your parent, your father is there, and you're a child, and you want to impress your parent, and you want to bring as much to the table, because that is kind of what it is.
Yeah.
He wants you to bring your A game. He wants you to inspire him.
Yes.
All photographers want that, by the way. But Meisel is a special case.
Yes.
So you do need to bring your A game, and it really pushes you. I found this obscure reference. I found this incredible piece of furniture that's from the 1930s. I want to show you. Look at this fabric that I found. And he's really interested in all these things. So he wants you to create the world. He sets the music on set. So you're creating this kind of world. And what can you be? Who's that character he's shooting?
So what were those early shoots like with him? Like, was there any learning curve of where I
Yeah,
don't.
my
Yeah.
first shoots were like I did the shoot with Paul Cavaco,
Yes,
where it
your
was
first
a
Vogue shoot.
very my first Vogue shoot was a very Kevin
That you're in, and I'm going to
That's
show
that,
the picture
that
when we
I'm
tease
in.
this episode.
It's that classic Vogue story of shooting like a model with like a personality, not a celebrity,
Right.
but like a professional. Like, so this was shooting Gisele, a very, very young Gisele, maybe
Yes.
in her first season or close to her first season, kind of doing the New York collections and showing her with different New York. There was a chef, there was an architect, there was,
John
a lot of times
Curran.
yeah, there was yeah, John Curran. Exactly. It was an artist. I mean, looking back at that, but we were all really young. So I remember doing the shoot. I was already doing the shoot and they asked if I would be in the shoot. It's like, this is something that just like, I think Paul and Steven are like, oh, we should just shoot Stefan and he could be a person. Cause I was an up and coming set designer
Yeah.
working.
With
So,
John Curran. Like it's
which is incredible. It's like you kind of don't realize it when because you're in the moment.
I
You're
know
doing it.
you
In my
don't.
job, every different scenario, I had to like change the set.
Right.
So I was like kind of more, I was literally, they're like, okay, we're going to shoot you and Gisele. So like, what would your set be?
Okay, so
Literally
how
what they
much
did.
prep did you have? I need to know this because for that to be, I was flabbergasted when you told me your first shoot for Vogue and your first two covers, because we'll talk about this is all Meisel. That was such a crazy shoot.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the pictures; they are completely different.
Different.
The locations look completely different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
And
some is studio and some is location.
I mean, so
I think
how
the
much
idea
prep
is
time did you have?
I mean, you have probably more than a day. Obviously, back then though you didn't have the internet, so you do have
Oh my
you did have
God.
you did have a little
I'm not even thinking
time.
about that.
You did
that
have
you
some
don't
prep
have
time.
the internet.
Although a lot of times it would be like this. You would be shooting, you'd be on set, and this is a perfect example. You're on set and like they want to shoot me and Gisele's like the model, where like I'd already like planned this scenario is like we're shooting an actor, so I'm going to make a dressing room of like backstage. I'm going to shoot an architect, so what would that be? I'm going to shoot an artist, what would that be? Whatever. And they're like, okay, we want to shoot you. What would your set be? So literally, I didn't prepare that for that. So
That would happen that day, they said
happened
that?
like literally like it happened like that minute. So I'm at Pier 59. Pier 59 had opened then, and Steven was shooting a lot there.
Oh my
They're like, what would your set be?
While
So
you're
like-
working on set.
And I'm like, hold on. I'm like, I'll be right back. So I ran to the equipment room and I'm like, okay, what could this be behind the scenes? Because it's a behind the scenes
Right.
shoot. So I kind of pulled all this stuff together. I pulled a bit of scaffolding. I did my color samples. I mean, if you look at the picture,
Yeah.
it's a portrait of me. It doesn't look like I'm like made an elaborate
But you
set,
can see,
but there's a suggestion of it. I mean, that's like I did in like
But-
5.
but you know what? You're on your set.
Yeah, exactly.
You're on your set. But did you have assistants at that time?
I did.
Okay.
You know, it's a small crew.
But how would you find this stuff pre-internet? That's a question.
Well, there were prop houses and there were tons of furniture. There was a lot more furniture stores.
That would let you rent?
It would let you rent. There was a lot of places. So you'd go all through Soho, would have the most amazing modern furniture. Uptown would be more classical. The D&D would have furniture places. You'd have antique stores off of University Place. I mean, there were a lot of places to go to back in the day. Like tons. So it was easy. And what was great is that you were shooting in the city. And there were prop houses. All the prop houses, they've all moved to Brooklyn. What few are Queens, what few are left. But back then they were all in the city. So like you were at Pier 59, there was, if Steven said, oh, we're shooting, we've actually changed our idea.
Right.
And we want you to do this really quickly. So what can you come up with? So you run to the prop house, you have your assistant run, or you run to the prop house and you quickly pull whatever you can. But you were lucky in those instances because your resources were right there. You could run to the garment district and get fabric.
Well, that makes me feel better that there were prop houses because I was like pre-internet head scratch.
Well, the thing is, when you were prepping a job before, you would go out and shop. So this is the thing, you would go out and shop and you would either take Polaroid pictures, or if you were doing a lot of photos, you would take tons of photos and you would have them developed and you would do boards and you would go
Right.
meet with the photographer or whatever. You do this to any client, any if
Yeah.
you're doing an advertising job, or you would send Polaroids occasionally, but that's how you would work. There was no internet. You literally got to open the phone book, and if you needed to find a fabricator, like, oh, I need to look for cinder blocks or a foam. I need to make something out of like all these industrial pieces of foam. Like you would look up out of the yellow pages, and
Yeah.
you really had to be resourceful.
Yeah.
Really
No. And I think I feel that we, from this time period working, have an advantage now because we had to develop that skill, right? No is not an answer. You find it. And that happened.
And
to
then
me.
this is one thing that I tell
Yeah.
people, I tell my assistants all the time, my people at my studio, like get off and we're all on our computers all the time. We're looking at inspiration on Pinterest or whatever, but I'm always like, get off the computer, go out, go shop. You know why? Because you'll go to that antique store, you'll go to that interesting store. You might find something that's so inspiring that you're going to remember down the line.
Right.
Or you're going to find something that like really like makes you more creative. Just like staying on your computer, it's like it's not helpful. You can't
Touch
find
it,
everything on the
feel
computer.
it.
Go
Yeah.
go. I have an incredible library in my studio with like thousands of books. And I'm always like, look in the library, see what you can find there. And it's not to say you can't find stuff on the internet, you can, but it's like you want to be able to go, it's like going to an art gallery. Like you're inspired,
Yeah.
you go to a gallery and looking at art
And also find something different. Everyone's looking at those same
Exactly.
references online. So, okay, this is your first
my
Vogue cover.
my first
And
cover.
this story,
Yep. That's my very first.
I mean, this is when he did his
This is
most
Gwyneth through the decades.
amazing work. Like, but like I imagine you had 2 days with her.
Yeah. Yeah. We did a day in the studio and then a day in the studio and then a day on location.
I mean, this one I got to talk to you about. Okay, so what brief were you given to be able to get? This is your first cover
So, I mean,
with a celebrity, the
with a
hottest
celebrity.
celebrity at the time. It
Yeah.
is Stefan Beckman doing.
I mean, at this point, like, this is my probably third. I mean, when I started working with Steven, I was in it by then. Do you know what I mean?
But you
I
just
started-
met him, and this is
but-
99.
I know this is 99, but I started working on advertising. I worked on Max Mara. I worked on Valentino. I worked on Dolce. I worked on these advertising jobs during this time that this was
right.
also shooting. So like every day was a Meisel day.
Right.
Like every week. I don't know. You know what I mean? So like you were just in the thick of it and you were rolling on to the next project and talking about the next project and like
Yeah.
we're gonna shoot Gwyneth Paltrow, incredible. We're going to show her all through the different decades. We're going to show her in the 1920s, 1940s, 1960s, 1980s. So that was kind of the idea of the shoot.
I mean, it's amazing for you, but this is also Anna Wintour. Okay, so this is, and I do want to ask, it just came to me, with it being Vogue, do you have to think differently at all on the pieces you're selecting? Or is it you're still dressing Steven's image? Are you thinking it has to be Vogue?
Well, I think you wanted the right image. Like you want it to be like that sofa, for example, that 80s sofa,
yes.
which is in front of the pool.
Yes.
I found this like really amazing high-end like furniture they would like make for like Russian oligarchs back then. It was like not something you would probably have in your house, but it was like not an inexpensive sofa. So that's a perfect example. You want it to be the best it could be.
Yeah, and that color, like where
The color.
did
And it had
have-
like, you can't really see it, but it had like incredible like gold legs and it was great.
Oh,
So-
I see. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, there you see. I mean,
Wow.
like it's so sick. I mean, the thing is, you wanted to look for the right piece of furniture, but like the sickest, the something that would be inspiring and like
But
know,
did you show him images of a lot of them and he chose that, so that's the only one you brought to set, or did you have to physically bring more options to
but we
set?
always have more options in any scenario. So I definitely had a few options. But you're also dealing with the fashion editor there, whether it's Grace or Tani or Paul. Maybe
Right.
you're showing them some stuff before. They're like talking about the outfit, like
Right.
wearing, oh my God, that blue would be incredible with that. Yeah.
Right. That's where the
So,
collaboration that
so
we'll get
this
into later comes. But
exactly.
and then I mean, then the second one, it's like, okay, now moving on, we have
Yep.
Winona.
So Winona, like this is like her Matt Damon era. This is when
Yes. No,
Matt
it's
Damon showed up at set. I don't know if you remember.
I wasn't on this.
Oh, you weren't on that. So
Because I didn't leave Anna's office and get promoted till the end of 99. So I'm her assistant all of 99.
but you knew what was going on.
Oh, yeah.
You were approving these shoots or not?
I mean,
Yeah.
so even
did
with
her
this
as like night.
truck, the car.
Yeah.
So
The
you had to get a
car.
car.
Yeah, I did all of that. So we were doing like a whole Great Gatsby kind of very like 1920s glamorous. We shot
Oh, this is
location.
one of my favorite stories of all
Yeah.
time. Now,
Yeah.
was this all set, or
That
did
was
you
a
go
set
to
that
location?
we did two locations for that. We did an estate in Long Island in Great Neck, and then we also did Cipriani on 42nd Street, which no one would really was shooting. That was a very, I mean, if you think about it, people know that space a lot now,
Right.
but it was an old bank. So we brought sets into there. So that like whole dressing vanity thing was done. We like made a set within that location, like
I
different
mean,
things.
even the interior of this door, like you know,
It was a
this
vintage car that we got and brought to Long Island. So
I mean, it was funny when I saw all of the shoots you've done for Vogue. I wrote back to you like, I was on it. Oh my God. Like, because those early years when I get promoted from Anna's assistant to entertainment editor, like skipped associate, and I'm just kind of dropped at 25 years old into these sets. And it was just, oh my God, super intimidated. Everyone tells you things like, don't look at him, don't talk to him. So I'm already on this set of like the God. And then I'm with celebrities. I'm always with celebrities. So my main concern is, where is the celebrity? Keep the publicist away from the photographer. So I'm not, and that's why I've loved doing this and talking to all of you masters, because it's like I didn't have the time in the moment to appreciate what was going on. So I've been able to kind of go back, remember being there, and then relive that being on set when I can actually focus.
But
And I'm not,
that's for all of us. I mean, I feel like going back and looking at this past work, it's like you do a lot of different shoots over the years, and I've done hundreds of
yeah,
shoots, like literally
hundreds.
and hundreds of shoots. So you can't remember every detail of every shoot. You know what I mean?
But
And there's
it's
time,
funny
and there's
looking
things
at
that you
these.
remember, but then you go back and really think of it. But you're in the moment. You're working.
Yeah,
You're there.
exactly.
You're there to do an amazing job.
Well,
And
and that's what Orlando
yeah,
said. He's like, I was fully focused
you have to
on,
be. You have to be.
but it's like Deborah Messing. That was his last cover.
I
And
know.
remember that? And what I remember most, other than that Deborah was allergic to meat and dairy and that she only ate white Jelly Bellies, was that he would ask me to look through the lens and ask me if I thought he had a cover. And it was hot out and he was all bundled up. So I like knew something that he wasn't well. But other than that, like I just remember how lovely it was being in his presence.
That cover is like she looks like $1,000,000.
It's incredible. I just saw her
looks
recently and we talked about it. So I definitely remember that. And then that huge music story with Meisel, Julianne and I were talking about. I mean, Grace still says she doesn't like it for some reason, but I'm like, dude, that was a nightmare. She wanted the horrors to the point that we didn't have the budget to fly them, that she was like, they can stay with me. But
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. I loved it. I mean, it was a lot, but I thought that was such an amazing shoot. And then the other one that jumped, oh, the Daria Jake Gyllenhaal, because that was one of Daria's early shoots.
And that was right before Brokeback Mountain came out. So like Jake
Yes.
literally, it was literally about to come out. Like people knew about it, but that was really the start of his career.
Yes, exactly. And I remember them dancing. I remember the horse.
Yeah.
And then I remember the Kate Hudson with Matt Dillon and Owen Wilson because, you know, Owen needed his own little area. He needed a flat iron. He needed face makeup. It was like a whole thing. And one of them that I love that you did that I've referenced a lot, especially with the World Cup coming and different projects I'm working on, is the Gisele soccer story. I
Oh
mean,
my
I
God.
was so impressed by her.
That was amazing. I mean, Giselle is like literally brings it all to a shoot.
Yeah, that
Idea to do a soccer story there. Is just great. So we shot it. We shot at this location at this school out in New Jersey, and I'll remember we used confetti at the very end of the very end of the shoot. We decided we're going to do because it's going to ruin the field that we're shooting at. We're going to do
right.
a giant confetti moment, but the winds kind of took up. We had the confetti went all over, and it took us like literally hours and hours and hours to clean it up. It was a nightmare.
Oh my
It was a
God.
nightmare, but that was a super fun shoot and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
fun
Well,
to kind of you know it's
yeah.
a theme, so you kind of run with it.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about the different photographers because, you know, we talked a bit about Herb and obviously about Meisel, but you know, you've worked with every master, and you know, everyone has a different way of working, a different process, definitely a different energy on set. But I wanted to know kind of what you've learned about your job or just meaningful things about how to be a successful person or
Yeah.
a teammate from the different photographers. And I know you've done a lot with Klein. Edward Enninful is a big collaborator of yours. And Edward and Klein did one of my favorite covers ever for W. Before we talk about that shoot specifically, I would love to know how they work when it comes to sets and props, just how it works.
Every photographer has a different style and a different approach, and they're all masters in their own way. There's not like one that's better or one that's worse.
Of course.
And they're all, and I've been super fortunate in my career to work with the best because you're only as good as the team that you're working with, like for
Yes.
sure. You could do the most incredible set in the world. It's got to get lit. It's got to get shot. It has nothing to do with what you're doing. It has to do
Right.
with the team. So
Yes.
all of these incredible team make the picture. And and to work with all these different photographers and to have their point of view and their eye, like Meisel, we were talking about before, obviously you're diving into a world. Who is that character that we're shooting?
Yes, character.
Character is really important. The music is set on.
And Garen talked a lot about he had this brain that was like a dictionary or an encyclopedia of references of time periods and film references and music.
And Meisel's very versed in all of that.
Yes.
I mean, all of these
Yes.
photographers have a very strong sense of art and film. They all are great in that way. Meisel has a special kind of
Yes.
for that. And I feel like his pictures are like, they're an idealized version. Like, what's the most perfect version of that idea? It doesn't necessarily have to be glossy, but they're the perfect idea.
Right.
And that goes down to the hair and makeup,
Yes.
the lighting. Like
Yeah, because I've seen him on set when he used to be on an open set-ish. He'd be like, Pat, like he would see one little detail or he'd want it changed a tiny bit. Like that's a perfectionist who has a vision and you guys are, it has to fit, tweak this, tweak that until he sees it, right? Because that's the thing about photographers. They have an image here and they have to be able to see it there. So
for
it's working into that image, right?
Yeah. But like Klein has a different kind of approach.
Yeah. Oh my
So with
God.
Stephen Klein, like truly like, he has such a strong point of view. I think out of everyone, he has the strongest point of view. Like it's his world
Yes.
and how that fits in the world. And that's you're in this world, whether he's pushing boundaries,
Right.
is it twisted? Is it this? It's a story. It's a film approach. It's definitely like even the stills to me feel like film stills always.
Yeah, and I just had him on, and he said he's been doing that recently, and
really, yeah.
I want to tell you something because I definitely fascinated by this Klein conversation. Is that Garen said when doing hair, it had to look not normal. So the more that it looked not normal is the closer he was getting to what Klein would see. And then there's the Klein girl. So everything is the Klein world. It's
for sure.
So how would that work?
I think for him, I mean, lighting is key, like I said before. I think Klein pushes the lighting in a way that no other photographer does, in a way. And I don't say that to diss any of the
No, it's different.
It's different. But the lighting team and his crew over the years, he's pushing, because there's such a strong point of view, lighting becomes lighting is the key always.
Right.
To make sure someone looks right or it works. But his lighting is such a strong point of the vision.
So how does that affect what you're doing?
Because I feel like you have to think about how the colors are going to react.
Okay.
So you have to think about, like, when you think of a Klein woman, but I also think Steven can do anything. Like,
oh, yeah.
He can shoot. I've shot Calvin Klein campaigns with Eva Mendes where, it could be Herb. Like, it could be,
exactly.
It could be that world, and she looks gorgeous. Yeah. Like, she is like just.
Well, he's an artist. He's a painter.
His women, like, people like to say, like, oh, his women are always weird, or
no, strong.
But they're always strong. But like, I feel like he can light them in different ways.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
For sure.
Oh, so that's interesting. And then what's the weirdest prop you had to find for a Klein shoot? Like,
oh my God.
Or the weirdest.
Yeah, I did a pregnant man shoot with him once.
So how did you had to do
just dealing with, like,
you had to do the prosthetic type stuff?
They had the prosthetic there, but then deal with, like, how that dealt with, like, the set and how we were doing stuff. It's always a very twisted thing, of what those props are. I've gotten, like, crazy sex dolls for him. Just really.
And he's so matter of fact about it. It's so funny. And
robotic. We did a Lyric thing for W.
Yeah.
We did all these, like,
Do you have, like, a go-to robot guy now?
I would say there's a lot of people you can go to.
Yeah.
But robotics always a huge part of his world.
And how do you feel because I've heard from different people about the music that he plays and how
sets the mood,
how it takes you a while to recalibrate with that type of the environment.
Steven might shoot, like, Meisel might have a music that sets a tone.
50s.
Yeah, or like, I'm doing, like, Francois Hardy, and it's like a 60s, like, thing. Yeah. And he might have that and something else. And Klein will do one song repeated that's super dark.
Right.
Really gets you into the mood.
Right.
There's music on set to inspire always. They're like, and the music is always a great kind of lubricant for any talent, whether it's like their favorite song or their favorite.
Right.
But for those photographers, they're using it to set a mood and to take you in and transport you to that world.
Right.
For Klein, he's, like, using it in an edgy way to try to really force that. And sometimes it's like that same, and it's like, it can be a lot.
Yeah. And with Peter Lindbergh, when you worked with him, was it a lot of these scenarios, these kind of scripted, like, stories?
I think with Peter, Peter had definitely, like, and it's till to this day, those backstage, those, like, Hollywood things.
Yeah, exactly.
They're a part of his work.
Right.
I'm a part of, just like you could say Klein, there's things for his work that is repeated throughout times. Peter was like one of the sweetest, nicest. It was like working with your father or grandfather.
Yeah.
Like, he was, like, truly
and joyful
and fun and
like,
funny.
He loved it.
And playful. But I love his pictures because they feel timeless.
Oh, absolutely.
They feel you don't know what era they're in. They're crisp. They're beautiful. They're idealized, but in a different way. He's done obviously a lot of black and white too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about. Now, do you?
I've shot both. I shot color and black and white. But when you think of Peter's work, you really think of the black and white. Like,
So does that allow you to not have to worry about the color of some things if he's telling you this is a black and white shot?
well, I
Could
think
you?
you still have to be careful of your
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah.
Always. Do you know
Right.
what I mean? You make sure your blacks or your grays or certain
Yeah. That's almost
your
harder
tones
than
are, yeah,
probably,
your
right?
tones, like, yeah. So you have to make sure that they're the right tone because they all have to
Yeah.
fit
Oh
for
my
sure.
God. And then what about kind of the date? I'm just throwing out some people like a Tim Walker or,
Tim Walker, I've worked with only a couple times when he's come to the States. And again, he is like a visionary, like strong point of view, like incredible to work with, really fun on set, a
and
twist.
Craig. You do a lot with
Craig's,
Craig.
I worked a ton with Craig. Craig is incredible. He's modern and fresh.
Yeah.
He's like experimental and he was always looking for new approaches. He's super easy to work with and super collaborative.
Well, Francel says he uses his light, his
Like,
cameras, his lenses are always changing. That she's had to learn if she sees him changing it to change the makeup according to the lens
yeah.
because it's going to look different. And I didn't even
He's,
know that.
but Craig changes things in an instant.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning like, oh, I'm going to try this. Or you might think you have the picture.
Yeah.
Like with a Mario, you're like, you do it and it's incredible and you get the shot and you
And
move.
he's like, move on.
But
Exactly.
Craig, he's like, that is incredible. Let me try something else. Wait, let me try. And that's what's great about Craig is that he will push himself and maybe it's better, maybe the
Yeah.
other one's better, but he doesn't think he has the picture and he wants to try new things. And he does with his light, his talent looks incredible. He's
Yes.
really, really consistent, I would say. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
His lighting and his like from models, talent, celebrities, like he wants to make sure they look the best that they can do.
No, and one of my favorite covers is the second Winona Ryder that you were on. It was out in LA with Tawny Goodman. And I remember being on the treadmill very early, the first day of the shoot in the L'Hermitage, getting a call from her publicist saying she was sick and that she was not coming. And
I remember.
I had to tell Anna, and we ended up
And we had
pulling-
gone out there and set up this giant set
Yes.
at a location, but we're doing all this stuff in this backyard of this house, and we had all this crazy furniture,
Yes.
all
Yes.
this crazy stuff and flowers and stuff.
Yes.
We had set up all this stuff, and we're like, what do we do? We're out here in LA.
You know what? Looking at that, I had no idea that wasn't someone's garden.
No, it was a garden that we
but-
augmented and made.
Yeah. I
Like
mean,
that.
it is, that's the most that is the picture. That's when the set is the picture, like is the star. But so we got Amber and shot the whole,
Yeah, we shot the whole thing.
Yes.
The whole thing in Amber, which Amber is one of the most amazing models of all time.
I know.
He happened to be there, thank
Yes.
God, in LA. And we
Yes.
shot the whole thing.
Yes.
And we're like, okay, well, this would work in a different way with Amber. Amber and Winona, like both great, but very different. So how
Yes.
is this going to work? Craig has such a great relationship with Amber and has done so many amazing shoots with her. So we did this shoot with her. Not as kooky as a Winona,
Right.
but still interesting and really cool with Amber. And then we shot the whole thing,
Again with
And
Winona.
was because we didn't know she was going to show
I
up.
was like, she better show up. And then was it kind of like having a whole prep day? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, kudos to Amber that she did this shoot for nothing.
I know.
I mean,
know.
Yeah.
That's wild. Okay, so process and collaboration. I'm going to set it up a bit. You've said one of the things you love most about your job is that it's truly collaborative. You're putting on a play together with stylists, photographers, and editors. One of your closest collaborators is Marc Jacobs. In 2006, a week before his runway show, Guido recommended you, and you pulled off designing and constructing a set at the Armory in a week. You also met Marc on his first Vuitton campaign with Inez and Vinoot. That started a nearly 20-year relationship that has transformed the runway from a simple catwalk into an immersive theatrical experience. So that will lead us into what makes a good collaborator. I know how important it is to you and to a successful set and image? What qualities make the creative process really flow? And tell us about working with Marc. And what is it about that relationship that has kept you guys together for so long?
There's different stages or chapters in my career, and I hope to still evolve and still do creative things my whole life. So this was definitely a pivotal where like meeting Fabian and then obviously meeting Steven and getting called in for a meeting and working with Meisel, that was super pivotal in that part of my career. And then that kind of launched into so many different shoots and working with so many incredible photographers. But I hadn't done any runway shows. So I got a call. Like you said, Guido recommended me a week before the show. So they've already started loading into the armory because back then you do the lighting rigs and you do all this stuff. So they started already loading into the armory. And then Marc's like, this is my idea. I'd like to do some kind of set for the thing. I'm thinking this is my inspiration. So what do you think about doing a set? I mean, the plus of this is that I was used to the editorial world. I was used to doing shoots and used to doing them quickly. Used to like on a dime, like having so many resources on set with Meisel, like let's change the background.
But no one's seeing it in person. That's a huge difference. You can have a corner that you're focusing on here.
But I think the idea of doing something so quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It didn't really phase me.
Right.
Okay with that. Do you know what I mean?
It's just the scale.
The scale. So, and I had not worked in that scale.
I'm like at the armory.
I had not worked into that scale. So I got called in to do the thing. And we were doing, I remember I went in for the meeting and I literally came back the next day or maybe like 8 hours because I had no time.
Right.
So I came back. I'm like, why don't we do something like this? He wanted to evoke the city. So that's kind of what he wanted to do. So like, let's do an abstracted city landscape, but with materials and not so realistic. So I referenced like Louise Nevelson and a few other artists. And then I brought in some materials and we literally just kind of had to run with it. And the set was really well received. I mean, Kathy Horn did this front page article in the New York Times about it, that it was a set like worthy of like the opera. It really like took me by surprise because I was thrown into this world. I knew everyone. I knew the players. So like,
of course,
I knew Guido, I knew the hair and makeup people. Like I knew the models because I'd been on set with them, but I'd never done a show. Obviously I knew who Marc was.
Yeah.
On that one shoot with him.
Yeah.
Benude, but like, it's a different world than like a shoot. So that started a relationship, working on shows with him. And then it was always a very fast process with him. Like everything was under 2 weeks, because that was his process.
And you have to respect that. You can't say, so can we think about next year?
Well, I think it's something nice about, you work on something for like 4 months before, and then the design and the approach changes.
Right.
The idea changes.
Right.
I feel like Meisel and Marc, Steven and Marc are very good friends. And they're very good friends for a reason, because they think alike. They think as like directors. Right. Marc is thinking of the clothes, obviously, but he's really thinking about the hair and makeup. What's the set? What's the chair?
The character.
The character.
Yeah.
Name is Meisel.
Yeah.
They are literally two peas in a pod.
Yeah.
So it was amazing that I could work with both of these people, because as you bring your A game and you come in with all these ideas, he might not like the ideas, but you develop these ideas over. And I think with a runway show, you want to make sure that the set doesn't take away from what the designer is doing.
Right.
Really, it sets the stage.
It supports it.
Yeah. And I think that's always been my approach with these shows. I hate the idea of doing a set for its set's sake. People are like, whatever set you want to do. I'm like, yeah, but it has to make sense.
Right.
It has to make sense in what we're doing. And it has to be part of that idea, that process for the designer. It can't.
Do you have a preference of, like, now that you've done both things for so long, of a show versus editorial?
I love the scale of shows. I have to say.
Yeah.
I love the drama, and I love being able to transport a large group of people.
Yeah.
That they sit down, the music starts, and music, again, a huge part of the show, and the music and the lighting, and they're transported for a small amount of time.
Yeah.
And that's really, really a special experience. But on the flip side, I do love going back and doing shoots, because you're working with a small crew. You're bringing all these things. And some of my favorite shoots with Steven and especially with Craig is I bring a bunch of stuff. Like with Craig, I'll do a set for Vogue or something, and I'll bring, okay, we're going to do like all these things, and Grace is the editor or like whatever. And I'll bring a bunch of ideas, and we don't know what we're going to do. We have no idea.
Right.
But I'd like to try these things. And every
Yeah.
picture is a different set, but it can be a completely different big set. And you got to do it really quickly and
Well,
put it.
that taps in and kind of
No,
wakes
it's
you up,
stressful.
right?
It is stressful. There's times that I'm like, oh my God, I have to do this. Like we did the Barbie book with Craig, which all the looks with Margot Robbie, and we had
Yeah.
all these ideas, and we literally had like 5 minutes to do change the set every time, or maybe a little more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You bring all these ideas, and you like sometimes they don't work, but you like you just bring it all and you put it together. Like I've said in the past, you put together this play and you put together this show
Yeah.
really quickly. So I do like going back to that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because one is it's almost hyper real because
Yeah.
it has to be you have 15 minutes where people are living in your space, right?
Yeah.
So it's got to be impactful but play a supporting role. And then your editorial work has to be timeless because it's going to live forever.
True.
The other, you have to make it so it lives in people's minds forever and they remember it, but you have to make something that visually will last forever because people are going to be referencing it forever,
Yeah.
So it's, I mean,
I think it's great that I started in a world that was a smaller world, like shoots. And that's how I got my experience building with teams and working with incredible people. Working with, it could be also working with brands where you have budgets to do things.
right.
And then what's been great about the shows and the events and the big scale things that I do, I'm known as the big set guy, which,
Yeah.
because a lot of times they don't want to call me for like the little thing. I mean, I like doing anything.
Yeah.
But they think of me because of the shows and because of the scale.
Yeah.
I've done these giant things. But it's great to dream big and to be able to like really go there.
Yeah, exactly. And then another long-term collaborator is Edward Enninful. And it was during my time at British Vogue with the editor as editor-in-chief that we did our most recent work together. I thought it was our most work together until you showed me how much work together we had from before. But can you talk about that working relationship with Edward? I mean, as an editor, but he was editor-in-chief, so he also had a lot more influence in those shoots that we did because he wasn't the editor on the shoots we did as covers for British Vogue. We had COVID at that time. We had Billie Eilish cover. I mean, we had Angelina Jolie where we were in her house. And I remember us talking about trying to get back. We were watching the election together with Angelina.
That was one of the most surreal experiences.
Yes, and then we did Beyonce's first British Vogue cover in the middle of COVID. It had changed multiple times. It was a new photographer. Edward wasn't there. And you and I were really Edward's eyes on that shoot because he was on a laptop. But before that was this Rihanna W cover, September 2016 with Stephen Klein, one of my all-time favorites that I need you to talk about before the British Vogue stuff, because you are Edward's set guy. So there's something to be said about our editor relationship.
So I had a long relationship working with Edward. Started with both Stephen Klein and Steven Meisel when he was at Vogue, and then he moved to W. So at that point, when he was at W, I was working on a lot of stuff. I was a lot of covers and a lot of shoots for W, which was doing some really ambitious things because Edward was involved. And Edward was like ambitious and great. And he's one of the greats to like really push ideas out there, whether it's the next celebrity or the biggest celebrity. So we were doing this Rihanna shoot, obviously so inspiring. What can we do? It's Rihanna, it's Stephen Klein, two incredible things to put together, and Edward and Pat. So what kind of world do we want to create? So Stephen wanted to do this apocalyptic world that was just really, really out there and really had a lot of darkness, but a lot of beauty in a way. They wanted every look was going to be a different hair and makeup look.
Oh my God.
So this shoot was a 26-hour shoot. We were there We were there for
Are
26.
you serious?
I'm not kidding. It
Because
was
I know they've talked about, because
it was
my
insane.
last one with her started at night and it went, I had to leave at 2
Great.
a.m.
I was there 26 hours.
Oh my, of
Tiana was
course.
probably there for like 24 hours.
Well,
she
you
was there
look
for-
at it and it's massive. And one quick thing I want to say about Edward is I've been with him and his first thing is, let's talk about the sets. I would hear him say, we've got to get Stefan. Is Stefan available? That comes super early.
yeah, the look is really important. And he's
Yes.
really key to like what those visuals are, making sure the right photographer is attached to that project first and foremost. And then what is the look we want for that thing?
Yes.
So Steven wanted this kind of like burning world of like oil fields. So we were at Pier 59. We covered the entire part of Stage C.
Wait. That was on a set?
That was on a set.
That was not on location.
That was not on location.
Holy shit, Stefan.
That was on the
I
set.
thought that was on location.
No. Those are all backgrounds that Steven put in. When you're a director and you're working on a big movie and you're doing green screen, this was the idea. We're getting these backgrounds and we're marrying them with like props and foreground elements. The entire site was covered in coal, pretty much coal.
And then what about the
coal.
Fences?
All that's there. All that's there. We built all that. All the props are built. And then the dogs were brought in, and then obviously all the extras.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was
And
crazy.
you're burning things in
Yeah, we're burning some things
in this studio.
but small stuff. But a lot of the stuff was on the background. A lot of the stuff was in the background. So
and how are the backgrounds? What's your involvement with the backgrounds?
So with Steven, he got really inspired years ago by thinking of how backgrounds, and he's done this a lot in his work.
Yeah.
And I've worked on a lot of shoots with him with this, where he's looking at surreal backgrounds and how you marry them with real images, like real imagery. Like, do you have a set? Do you have a floor? Do you have furniture? And then if you change the background, how does that really work? So this is one of those instances that he's doing research and we're doing research with him.
Right.
We're looking through these. And a lot of times it really helps him think. It also helps him think like grandly, like to think of how do we open this idea up?
Right. You don't have any constraints when you do it that way. You can bring someone anywhere.
You're there with Rihanna for 24 hours. You're doing hair and makeup changes every single look. You can't bring her to an oil field and like where the conditions are like in the Middle East or wherever you are. So like, how do you create that world? With Steven, like we start looking through images together. We start looking at like what those images are for the background. So a lot of times we'll send him initial images. He might have some ideas on some other stuff. A lot of that's like stock photography. Sometimes that's photography. I mean, it's always manipulated. It's never like, or sometimes it's created. Like we've done jobs for him, like Victoria Beckham fragrance ads where we're doing these backgrounds. And we do a lot of those. A lot of times we do them different ways. So sometimes we do them as rear screen projections. So I'm able to like project the images behind the talent. Or sometimes we're doing printed. Sometimes we're layering them in after the fact. It kind of depends on the approach. We've done Rihanna shoots. I did Rihanna shoots with him for a V cover where we did backgrounds as well. So he's gone through all this kind of Lara Stone. We did tons of stuff, backgrounds. I think it really opened his eyes up to like, he's done incredible shoots in studio and incredible shoots on location.
Right.
But like, you can't always fly to Venice to do a shoot. You can't fly to Paris tomorrow to do a Katy Perry.
It's so wild because that really looked real.
Yeah.
Like not for 1 second.
That's the beauty of his lighting. That's the beauty of his lighting, that you don't know where the world stops and starts.
Yes.
It's hyper real.
Yeah.
And I think what really helped here in this specific instance is that the fashion and the hair and definitely the makeup pushed to the extreme that you normally never see.
Right.
It's in a normal fashion shoot. It wasn't like anything that anyone had ever done.
No. Did that win awards or anything?
Yeah, it did. It did.
And I just thought, because I've been telling Steven he has to do a film, you guys I would like to see what happened moving. And I would love to take that story to screen see what she's doing, like
Yeah.
who she
But
is,
we are
where she
creating a
came
world.
from.
I mean, we're creating a world for her.
Yes, I
You know
want
what
to know
I mean?
how she grew up. Why is she like that? What happened?
Yeah.
I want to see the film of that. I
Exactly.
mean, that
So it was a long
yeah.
day. It was a surreal day because as you're working into your 20th hour, you don't know what time it is, and you're in a soundstage. You're at Pier 59, and
Yeah.
there's no windows, and you're literally just like you're nodding off on the side.
Are there sometimes you feel like you are super involved from the start of the idea, or sometimes you're brought into with an idea already there? Is your relationship with Edward one where you know that you are as important as the photographer?
I think things have changed for the better, meaning that like I think back in the day, they might do a shoot and then they realize they need some furniture.
Right.
We're gonna maybe need something, so we'll call Stefan or we'll call a
Right.
set designer to do something. Now I think they're thinking like a film director.
Yes.
They're thinking, what is this picture going to be? What is this world going to be? They're thinking broadly. And
Right.
that's how the business has changed, I think, for the better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of things you can do. So I am brought in very early, a lot of times, to help conceptualize.
Ideate. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and because we're coming up with ideas, and I always love to bring a lot to the table,
Yeah.
much as I can, not just being told like, oh, I need a sofa, so here,
Right.
but like,
Exactly.
this is great, but look at these ideas that
Because
we
you want to push yourself too. You have things you want to do.
I want to do things I've never done before.
Yeah, exactly.
I really do,
Exactly.
and that's one of the questions you wanted to talk about is what is some of those things that you can recommend to aspiring people is like put yourself out of the comfort zone, make yourself uncomfortable. You'll figure it out. It figures itself out, but do things you've never done before.
And what you said, which you touched on earlier, is take any creative opportunity you can. Even a small shoot or project can lead to a connection with someone you might work with in the future. I would love your advice to not even just people wanting to do what you do, but anyone, because it all crosses over. Creatives can give incredible advice to anyone who has a creative mind and wants to do something artistic. And especially then in the changing landscape, how does AI affect these jobs, and what other skills should someone learn that's necessary before they even think about trying to have a career like yours?
I think what's been the great thing about my career is that I've kind of, like I said earlier, chapters, but I still go back and do those things that I've done before, but shoots and things, but I've been able to really do different types of projects. I've done incredible fashion shows for Marc and a lot of other designers, Tom Ford and Marnie and Oscar de la Renta back when he was alive. So like to be able to do those and dream big and think big. And then also I've done windows and some store design, and I've done exhibitions at Gagosian. I just feel my advice would be take any kind of opportunity because you just don't know where it's going to lead. It might not be exactly where you think you're going to be, but you learn so much by doing. I've learned so much by doing runway shows and the scale, and I've learned so much doing retail design because I'm learning
Right.
how products are sold in an environment. And I
Yeah.
feel like that's benefited from my background doing shoots as well. So I feel like they all kind of feed into each other, and that would be my advice to anybody because the reality, the business has changed. It's like not when we started in the 90s, there were tons and tons of magazines, tons of brands. There was the opportunity to do tons of shoots. And there were budgets for those shoots.
Right.
And there
The
were
budget.
very big budgets.
Right.
I did this Hollywood idea for Vogue, which was super ambitious, that ended up running an Italian Vogue with Meisel. That, it was on the back lot when Steven was really inspired by Los Angeles. He was living there. And it was all of these genres of movies that we did. But
Oh
the
my
budget,
God.
the budget for that, I was looking back, I think the budget might have been $100,000. I mean,
Well, it had to be. So what are some of
that could never happen. Like that might
or be thrown away after? I mean,
Exactly. So that's the thing, and you can speak to that of how stories might have gotten killed. So now, what I'm going to say is like those opportunities that existed, like shoots where you could get your feet wet, you could have big ideas, they might not exist anymore. So
Right.
you have to think in different ways. Like, oh,
Right.
I know this young designer who wants to do a pop-up on the Lower East Side. They're friends of mine. So why don't we do this really conceptual set idea for their pop-up for their store? Think of it in a
Right.
different way where you're still doing creative, interesting,
Yes.
but it's not what it used to be because the business has changed and it will continue to change.
Right.
Like, which is part of the world we live in.
The way and talking about that, I think it's important to love what you do. I mean, it's work, but it doesn't have to be work. It and with what we all do, like Tani will say, it's not just work, it's my life. And for the years I worked at US Vogue, it might as well have been my life. And they're my sisters and my aunts, and I called Anna mom. And I never dreaded going to work. And I said to myself, the day I do is the day I change what I do.
Yeah.
Because life's too short to be wishing for 2 days and wishing away 5 days to live for two, right?
What's amazing with all these people, like Anna especially, is that and all of these incredible editors, Tawny, Grace, Paul, like Edward, they're all ambitious in the best way. And
Right.
they push themselves, obviously,
Right.
but they push the talent around them, and the photographers as well. Like they're pushing people to do the best they can, but also to do these ideas. And I think that's the important thing that scares me about AI because people, that ambition, to just create something in a computer is not the same as actually trying to create an idea and work on something together
Right.
in a collaborative
It
way.
takes out all of that.
So I
Yeah.
feel like the ambition, that's what I hope does not go away because I've learned so much and I've been able to be creative because the people around me have let me be ambitious
Right.
because
Right.
they wanted to push the envelope. So I'm
Right.
going to make sure, all those amazing shoots with Stephen Klein, like he's pushed me because he wanted to do an incredible, incredible job. So like that's really important to me that I continue
Right.
be ambitious and continue to push myself and to do things I've never done or learn about things.
Well, I want to talk about that. It was my last question. You've been running Bellport General for 6 years, but I understand you're closing the store at the end of the month and talking about pushing yourself and being ambitious and doing something you haven't done before. Tell us about Lateral Objects, your home line, which I didn't even know about.
I started that before COVID. So I want to try different things in life.
Yeah.
I want to see what happens. And I had a store in Long Island that a general store that I started during COVID. But then before that, I have a home line called Lateral Objects.
That's such a genius name.
Well, lateral, it was the idea
I
that
love it.
objects that I'm creating that are like in conjunction as a lateral kind of point to like my career. So
Wow.
we sell towels made in Portugal and tabletop
Oh my
made in like
God.
glassware and napkins. So anyway, that's been an interesting thing. You would think like, oh, he has a home line. How does that fit in the world of like doing a shoot or doing a fashion show? Well, it's great because I've been able to like manufacture things and make things overseas and the process. It's about
Well, you know what you can't find and what you wish was out there. I think it's a natural thing for you
for
to
sure.
do.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll do a link to it on my Instagram, but like what's coming up with that? Like what are the hot
More
pieces
products.
or the most exciting? What are you most excited about?
I'm excited about like new glassware and new textiles that we're developing and these new trays that we're making right now. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like I just want to do, I guess overall, I want to just keep going and being creative and in different arenas. And I feel like that's important in life.
For sure. You got to push yourself. I mean, that's when you grow. That's when you learn. That's when, all the magic happens. Someone said to me once, I was telling them how I was nervous for one of my podcast interviews at the beginning of it. And he said, that's good. That's the exciting part. When you feel nervous, that's when you're going to grow. And that's the exciting part of something. If you don't feel nervous, then it's not worth doing a way.
True.
Okay, so rapid fire. Rapid fire questions. It's this or that. Everyone has the same. So AM or PM?
PM.
Text or talk?
Talk.
I agree. Uber or Subway?
Uber.
Especially with all the stuff you have to carry. Everyone's always like, I can't carry bags.
Uber or
of
driving myself. I have I drive myself.
a book or film?
Film.
Yep. Sweet or spicy?
Sweet.
Spots or stripes?
Stripes.
Top or bottom?
Well, that could go a lot of different ways.
But
Top is definitely, like, I would say top, because,
although bottom is a foundation.
Bottom is a foundation, but the top is the pinnacle of something.
Right. Yeah.
The top is where you want to end up.
That's true.
It's also very optimistic. You could obviously there's a lot of connotations in those words.
I know.
That's
Blame Karen Mulligan.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. And one just for you, runway show or editorial shoot?
Runway show. I would say because runway show.
Yeah.
Both amazing, but the feeling, there's nothing like, and I still to this day, when a show starts, I get nervous, and you said
yes.
I get nervous because I want to make sure that that the shoe doesn't fall off the model's foot as they're walking down the runway, or like, I don't know. I want it to be the music cues are right, the lighting.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these have nothing to do with
it's a live set,
but it's a live set, and it's a piece of theater, and it's that feeling you get.
Yeah,
and I've been lucky enough to have some experiences with that. And not every runway show, it's not to say not every runway show needs to be theatrical. Right. It doesn't have to be like a piece of theater, because there's great runway shows that aren't that. But I've been lucky enough to have some experiences with runway shows that are truly, I've broken down and cried. Like, they've been really, really inspiring. The Diana Vreeland inspired one, that's probably one of that one, and there's another Marc season. They were really, the Diana Vreeland especially, that one was inspired by, the collection was inspired by Diana Vreeland. So we recreated her living room. Sarah Oliphant did this with me, an incredible painter that has worked with myself and Mary, and, incredible. She is the industry leader and standard of all the backgrounds that Anna uses and Steven uses. So it's someone that, Sarah Oliphant is incredible. Sarah created these kind of based on these small sketches we did and mood boards. She created these backdrops in a studio in Bushwick with me days before the show, and it was truly the most stressful. I didn't think we were going to finish. And if you go back and look at the show, it seems
they're just a bunch of backgrounds.
They're just a bunch of backgrounds that you did. No, they're all hand painted, and it was extremely hard. And I feel like I just, when the show started, I started crying. So I've had those experiences just because with the music and how it all, I think it was an emotional attachment because of the process that I went through.
Yeah, of course.
So that's why I pick a runway show.
Yeah, I'm going to have all these pictures on our website and on my Instagram, because you do, this conversation has to go along with being able to see, especially with what you do. Stefan, your journey from theater student to fashion's most celebrated set designer is incredible. You've shown that fashion can be a canvas for storytelling, for emotion, for transformation. Your collaboration with Marc Jacobs alone has created some of the most memorable moments in fashion history. But beyond the spectacle, you've built a new understanding of what fashion presentation can be. As you've said, you're creating 7 or 9 minutes of theater that takes people somewhere new. Thank you for sharing your story with us today. For listeners who want to see Stefan's incredible work, follow him on Instagram at Stefan Beckman. Visit the website for Lateral Objects and keep an eye out for whatever spectacular moment he creates next. And remember, whether you're starting with TV guide covers or dreaming of Vogue spreads, you have to start somewhere. Until next time, this is Going Rogue. Thank you.
This was so fun.
It was awesome. It's fascinating, and people need to know the people behind these images that they might not have been born yet, but they remember, they know, Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hope to see you soon.
All right.
Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening to Going Rogue. and be sure to like and subscribe. Today's show is produced by me and Maddie Rosenberg at Radio Free Rhinecliff with assistance from Maddie Kelly. Special thanks to David Vo for our great graphics and Taras Romanov for our epic theme music. See you next Friday.